reviving the tag team circuit in this time frame. Like, no, let's bring back the Road Warriors because they'll be the good ones.
For 11, Road Warrior Animal 2005. What comes to mind when you hear the name Legion of Doom? Big spiked shoulder pads?
The 80s.
NWA/WCW squash matches, and Hawk yelling, "What a rush!" Right? One name that doesn't, or shouldn't, leap to the forefront of brains is John Heidenreich. Unfortunately, someone in WWE Creative thought he'd be the ideal replacement for the sadly deceased Hawk into.
What's up, everybody? Celtic Gericker here, back whenever you get those 10s and 20 views. Yes, it's still me. I just, clean shaved. I just need to start riding my bike more. Just gotta start riding. Get rid of the little bit of double chin and extra skin. Because I did shave and it does show off that I'm pudgier than I want to be. But today is actually my birthday. Yay! But no, work still goes on. You gotta keep doing. I have to make like 4 or 5 more videos on my actual birthday. I'm doing this, of course, the day prior. But yes, so we're here. I was going to do a different video, but it turned into a word vomit, and it was just not making sense. So, change of plans. We're going with What Culture Wrestling video. WrestleMania is this weekend. I am meh about it. I do not think you should ever, a pay-per-view should be 2 days, especially when you have not enough good storylines to cover even one. To be really realistic. So, but this is What Culture's 15 times WWE returns immediately Backfired. I am a wrestling fan. I'll let you know if I watched it. Let's get to it. Oh, actually, first I want to see if I do have to fix the title. That's it. Not in. It is a nice, super long one, so I had to move everything over. Alright, let's get to it.
Read.
Of course, if you don't want to hear my commentary and stuff on this video, go to What Culture Wrestling's page. This video came out 3 weeks ago. Make sure, if I'll allow my thing, because I don't want to do a reaction to something that just came out. I want the video to breathe, you people to watch it, you people like, I wonder what some other people thought of this, because I have my feelings. That self-gratification to see if somebody else, some random person on the internet agrees with you or not. The game.
WWE comeback is supposed to hit. Sadly though, sometimes it's only a matter of weeks, days, hours, or even minutes before the company realizes they've made a terrible, terrible mistake. So I'm Gareth, you're watching What Culture Wrestling, and here are
Hi Gareth, hopefully you're having a good day.
15 WWE returns that immediately
Oh, I forgot to double check, make sure this was in,
Backfired. Number 15, Bob Backlund 2000.
Yeah, I was watching wrestling back then. Not as much as I wanted to. The issue with this is Bob Backlund's been wrestling since the 60s. He's just old, and it's like, you brought him back for what?
Would-be President of the United States, Bob Backlund, remember that, became a perennial Royal Rumble surprise throughout the 1990s. He showed up in the match between 1993 and 1996, then returned at the start of the new millennium in 2000. That one-off wasn't what it seemed. The WWF planned to bring Bobby back as a manager for Kurt Angle, which actually didn't seem like a bad idea, but it flopped hard.
Yeah, because Kurt's serious, who doesn't need a manager, and Bob Backlund's always kind of been this overly gimmicky type guy, which does not fit Kurt.
It's true. Curtis told a story via his podcast about Backlund forgetting they were live on Raw when shooting a backstage skit. This happened shortly after they'd been shunted together as a mentor and protege double act. According to Angle, Bob was a little too over the top and erratic during skits. But it was his character-breaking moment on the flagship that tipped producers over the edge. Bob was supposed to put somebody in a submission, but they were sitting down. So he turned to Kurt and asked if the dude was supposed to be standing or not. This real-life bewilderment called...
Yeah, Kurt just gives the angle of like, oh, shit, this is happening live.
Caused Angle to turn and stare at a WWF writer who was standing off screen. He was a rookie, so he didn't know what to do, and he couldn't believe that a true veteran like Backlund could be so clumsy. Look, it was a mistake, they happen, but it was a costly one. The promotion decided to go in a different direction with Kurt and take Bob off television. So much.
Yeah, and not long after this, where's my phone? Kurt Angle went to TNA, where he spent more years wrestling in TNA than he did in WWE. That's the crazy thing. Let's see, Kurt. 06. So yeah. So
Much for high hopes that the celebrated former world champion would help take Angle to the next level. He got there himself anyway, so it didn't really matter. Number 14, Sunny, 2009.
Where do you
the issue with some legends, it's what made them great in that era does not translate or doesn't age well. A simple one, wrestling related, would be Roddy Piper, WrestleMania 3, 4, one of those early ones, where he went half black body, not just black face, black body in a match. So, like, yeah, back then you're like, all right, cool, he painted half his body black. No one gives a crap. Today they're like, how dare he? Like,
Time to play a game of Spot the Sunny. Her life has taken several miserable turns over the years, but Sunny did seem to be getting things back on track when WWE brought her back for Raw's 15th anniversary celebrations in 2007. Eventually, the company inducted her into the Hall of Fame in
which she should be. She is like a legendary figure. Now put Chyna in as a singles competitor, you cowards.
2011. Sandwiched in between was a WrestleMania appearance most simply won't remember. And you've got a good excuse for that. WWE barely promoted that Sunny was part of the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royale at WrestleMania 25. In fact, she was hardly on camera at all before being dumped out of the match by Beth Phoenix. The women
Right person for it, though.
involved didn't get individual entrances. They were played down to the ring by Kid Rock instead. Then Santino Marella won the bout dressed as his twin sister.
Yeah, take that, progressive. Well, technically, but by today's standards, no one's going to care.
Santina. Yep, Mania memories. At one point, mid-match, it became obvious that even announcers Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler had forgotten all about Sunny's only official WWE match. So the backfire here was on WWE itself. Why bother bringing the original diva in at all if you weren't going to shout about it and make some noise about her sole in-ring appearance as an active talent? It didn't make a lick of sense. Some fans in attendance for Mania might not have even known that they were watching someone from yesteryear battle it out with the current crop of divas. I mean,
This probably was a misstep. Just this whole battle royale was a misstep because, like, you had them all come down at one time, so they couldn't get real promotions and entrances, and because of that, you kind of makes it hard for you to highlight everybody when everybody's kind of going nuts at one time.
even finding a workable screenshot of Sunny in the match is quite tough. But we just
God, I'm sorry, but I don't know who the blonde is next to Sunny, where the thumb is. That is not a flattered photo. That looks haunting. Like, the mouth looks like 16 feet going this way.
about got one. Her comeback really was that low-key. Number 13, Eva Marie, 2021. Not many
I can't even think of who Eva Marie is. I think she's a fake redhead, I think.
He shed a tear when WWE cut ties with Eva Marie and
Aha! I was right. The only thing I could think of for her was Total Divas. And she wasn't a...
gave up on their all-red everything experiment in 2017 after years of bashing heads against brick walls. It was clear to anybody with two working eyes that she did not have an aptitude for the industry and was never going to become an accepted member of the women's division. It sounds cruel, but it's just true. And that was especially true once Divas gave way to Revolution in 20...
Yeah, she kind of is a wrestler that is in the wrong era, and unfortunately, she kind of transitioned. She came out right as AJ Lee, the Bellas, Paige, who were actually putting on good matches because TNA's knockout division was the better of the two women's wrestling at the time. And then when you had Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Bayley, Sasha Banks all come out like, oh no, they're going to be treated as actual wrestlers. She was outclassed.
2015. But then they tried again. Following several weeks of hype vignettes, Eva appeared on the 14th of June 20...
God, she looks fake. I'm not talking about her chest, I'm talking about her facial structure doesn't look normal.
21 Raw, and had Doudrop wrestle on her behalf. Yeah, that was Piper Niven's crappy original name on the main roster. Fun times. This was more of the same...
Yeah, definitely a Vince move. No, you're Doudrop.
Same stuff fans had seen from Marie during an unsatisfying first run in the company, and there was absolutely zero demand for it. No one was fooled. It became clear instantly that she wasn't going to work second time around either. Like it was obvious literally seconds after she strutted on screen with Doudrop behind her. Now, credit to Piper for doing everything she could to facially sell how awful Eva was being, but there...
Yeah, you gotta give it up to, like I said, Piper Niven, who was just, hey, you're new, we're sticking with this chick who, even at where your level in the WWE is still way below you.
Herein lies the problem. Marie was playing a one-note, dated caricature during an era where the likes of Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, and Bayley were working bangers between the ropes. She felt seriously out of place. Again. WWE gave up late...
Yeah, 'cause then you got to bring in someone like next wave came in Alexa Bliss, and you're like, yeah, no, this girl screams character and charisma, and you're what?
to the same year after a roundly unwanted SummerSlam clash with Alexa Bliss that included way too much Lily the Doll nonsense. Hey, some people like it, but I'm just not one of those people. This evolution was a throwback to the pre-Revolution days, and not a good one. And that is probably that for her links to pro wrestling. Now, we're talking about all these returns and comebacks that were a little bit disappointing or just backfired altogether. So I want to know right now in the comment section right down below, what do you think is the most disappointing comeback in WWE history?
All right, we're pausing there. Most disappointing. Ooh, there's a lot you can kind of go off with. I got it. And it's disappointing because they dropped the ball on it. It's Christian. After he was Captain Charisma in TNA, proved he can get over as a singles guy. That the fans love him. WWE was just like, yeah, no, don't care that Christian came back. Just be like, oh yeah, it's Christian. Just that right there.
We might cover it in this list, but if we don't, let me know. Number 12, the British Bulldog, 1999.
Mute. I got nothing with the Bulldog. This was slightly 1999. I would have been 11. So yeah, this is slightly before I really could get deep into wrestling.
Keep in mind before watching this entry right here that the WWF wants...
Oh, so this is a UK channel talking about them, so you know that they have to be like completely honest.
Davey Boy Smith to be a key part of world title storylines heading into 2000. He feuded with The Rock and was part of a six-pack challenge for the vacant WWF.
He just looks like a steroid meathead with nothing other than, oh, I'm British and big.
Title at Unforgiven 1999, and that took place on the 26th of September. Earlier in the month, on the 9th of September, SmackDown, Smith returned to action and beat Big Boss Man in 90 seconds for the Hardcore title. Then
okay.
Handed the belt off to Al Snow.
Okay, correction, I do remember this era. I just don't remember this. Like, I remember Al Snow with the help me on his head.
Right. The British Bulldog did all this wearing jeans and a hoodie. So he barely even looked like the chiseled Man Mountain Federation fans had last seen back in 1997. Truthfully, Davey's comeback was snake bit from the off. He was having personal issues and had various addiction woes away from the ring. Regardless, this was a less than...
I'm just going to say this now, this is not really a knock on him. Either way, God, Davey Boy Smith Jr. looks just like his dad. Holy crap.
Stellar piece of booking for such a major comeback. The company even changed Bulldog's music up, which meant that fans in attendance initially had no clue who was answering Bossman's open challenge, Def Rebel style. Worse was to come the longer Smith wrestled. It was painfully obvious that he was a shadow of his former self as a worker. The whole thing was pretty sad to see, actually. Bulldog had been such a well-received star in his prime, and now here he was looking like...
Well, I think everyone kind of had that falling out of that pay-per-view in the UK where he wasn't physically, like, capable of actually wrestling.
Like someone's dad decided to win the hardcore title before picking the kids up from school. When it makes someone big time look less than guys, this was just a poor decision. If anything, Bulldog should have been kept back for Unforgiven and eased back in rather than poking his nose into the Bossman versus Snow stuff, just because that story had dogs in it and he had dog in his name. Yeah, very WWE.
No, so yeah, that's not right. Oh, the Road War. Like, this is another one of those teams that's just unfortunately just past their prime. When they're like, hey, let's bring you back when we got the Hardys, Edge and Christian, the Dudleys, just reviving the tag team circuit in this time frame. Like, no, let's bring back the Road Warriors because they'll be the good ones.
For 11, Road Warrior Animal 2005. What comes to mind when you hear the name Legion of Doom? Big spiked shoulder pad?
The 80s.
NWA/WCW squash matches, and Hawk yelling, "What a rush!" Right? One name that doesn't, or shouldn't, leap to the forefront of brains is John Heidenreich. Unfortunately, someone in WWE Creative thought he'd be the ideal replacement for the sadly deceased Hawk in 2005.
Oh, this is coming after Hawk's death? Oh, no. Like, yeah, you have Warrior Animal still coming out with the Warrior face paint, but you should have Heidenreich as Heidenreich, and like slowly like ease him into like Animal, like try and talk him into face paint, try and talk him into shoulder pad, like slowly work him into the replacement.
And that ruined Animal's comeback immediately. On the 14th of July, 05 SmackDown, then champs MNM.
Oh, I forgot Eminem, which was Morrison and Johnny Nitro and Morrison. Two great tag teams in their own right.
Challenged the famous Road Warrior to find a tag team partner and face them for the belts at the upcoming Great American Bash pay-per-view. Somebody must have cracked Animal on the bonce with a steel chair backstage, because he stumbled around before settling on Heidenreich as the right man for the job. And the worst era...
I get it, he's big, he fits the look. No.
Of LOD commenced. Yay. Literally nobody asked for this. Had WWE fans been polled, they probably would have plumped for Animal riding solo against Joey Mercury and Johnny Nitro rather than...
Joey Mercury, that's what his first name was. Like, 2005, would that have been right around Evolution time? Because Batista would have been a better fit.
And teaming with Heidenreich. Worse, Heidenreich then became an official member of the Road Warriors when he added his own face paints and...
Animal looks like, what the hell am I getting myself into? This is just not good.
Spiky shoulder pads to the equation. This was even worse than the Droz offshoot had been years earlier in 1998 and 1999. Bringing Animal back could have worked out had he not harpooned his own credibility within minutes by recruiting Heidenreich. Oh, that name. Fans didn't want to see anybody replace Hawk. They really didn't. Look, Animal...
Like I said, it would have been easier if it was like, I need a tag team partner, and he went through a few people. Like, hey, he brought out Heidenreich, tag with him, it didn't click. Cool, he brought out this guy, it didn't click. Then you find that person, like, oh, it's working. But in a way that's different, and then slowly bleed them into the, like, Legion of Doom mentality. Like, it would have been better with a nobody who's just big.
And John might have been palatable without the forced LOD 2K5 stuff, but this was just never going to get over. Number 10, Scott Hall, 2002. Okay, so some view...
So Scott Hall's always going to be that hard one to say it's a bad call. Let's see what he says. Because he is the bad guy, it's the NWO. This is right around when WCW would have been closing their doors. He still had a lot of good years left in him.
Viewers might consider this slightly unfair, because there was a bit of excitement for the NWO's arrival on WWF screens in February 2002.
See, that was where I think they screwed up. Like, they brought NWO in, and if you're kind of a wrestler at that time frame, you're like, they kind of killed WCW, so you just brought in Scott Hall and Kevin Nash as the outsiders and didn't team up right away with Hogan. Might have had something.
Storyline, Vince McMahon decided to inject his creation with a lethal dose of poison, is how he put it. Little did the then boss know that he was inflicting a poisonous atmosphere on his otherwise harmonious locker room by bringing in Scott Hall. Hall returned at No Way Out alongside Order Buddy.
Like, Nash looks like he's still in shape. Hall looks out of shape, though.
He's Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash. Fans popped, of course, but Scott became a backstage nuisance almost overnight. The man was battling a lot of demons at
Yeah, like Scott Hall, if you watched DDP's thing with helping him out, the dude has a lot of issues, and like I said, they could have helped him out get clean first and then brought him back, but they just brought him right over and
the time, so it's safe to say he probably shouldn't have been out on the road at all. WWF fans also wanted to see his old Razor Ramon character more than his NWO one, but that
I would say I would like to see a hybrid of the two, where it's still Scott Hall, Scott Hall, but as the bad guy. Scott Hall would have been a really fun thing where it's like he still got the change, he has like the mullet, but he's still like NWO, like it would have been a beautiful hybrid. Would have been a great thing.
pitch. The bad guy offered next to nothing before getting released in May after the infamous plane ride from hell back from Europe. On top of all that, Hall's hiring and behavior had a negative knock-on effect for top acts like Steve Austin. Working with Scott was a rotten experience for Stone Cold. He was not happy about being mired in the mid-card for WrestleMania 18, and he found that Hall wasn't too interested in putting on a show anyway. The single positive to come out of Hall's WWF reprise was his quick "Hey yo" and No Way Out. That earned a sizable pop, and Scott flashed a genuine smile. Everything after that exposed the fragility of his personal life at the time, though.
Yeah, like you could have, like I said, brought him in, but not really keep him on the road all the time, help him get clean. Would have been a better call, but
The late legend contributed little beyond annoying people behind the curtain or civilians on the aforementioned journey back from a European tour. And speaking of the NWO, number 9, Kevin Nash.
oh god, this right here is the beginning of the end for CM Punk's WWE run. The first one. I think this whole storyline was just the whole what are we doing?
2011.
Yep, here comes the pipe bomb.
In the immediate aftermath of CM Punk's iconic pipe bomb promo in June 2011, nobody sat down and said, you know what
Yeah, like Punk gives you this pipe bomb, which is a work shoot promo. He says it's like, hey, I want to go out there and give this promo, or it's just like be ripping you guys, telling you everything I'm unhappy with. And Vince was like, I think it will sell. Go nuts. And then media after went, Scott Hall. No, Kevin Nash. Sorry, Kevin Nash is the guy.
really kicked this into high gear? A confusing sub-story starring Kevin Nash. Okay, maybe Michael Hamflett did. WWE thought that was a fab idea, though. So
Because you had everything going with Triple H and Punk. Triple H called a fair match. Punk won it. He raised him up annoyingly. And then if he just hit him with a pedigree, it would have been a much better angle.
they brought Big Sexy back at SummerSlam to attack Punk and open the door for Alberto Del Rio to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase. This cut the summer of Punk off at the knees, and wasn't a surface-level dumb return that actually turned out to be genius. If only somebody could do a video on that kind of thing. I mean, that was true at SummerSlam, even before Nash got to his weird claims about receiving a text from Triple H, even though it turned out it wasn't actually Triple H texting from Triple H's phone. Yeah, that...
Yeah. Like, if he would have came out and been like, look, I could tell my guy needed my help. He wasn't going to do it, so I decided to do it. And kind of still put the blame on Triple H, basically being like, yeah, I see one of my close friends, Hunter, doesn't like this guy, and he was in a position here he couldn't do nothing about it, so I did, it would have been much better.
Explanation sucked bad. This was the age of scripted promos, and it seemed even Kev was mystified by the plots he was asked to spew here. Punk's pipe bomb on John Cena, Vince McMahon, and WWE in general broke the fourth wall, referenced New Japan, mentioned Ring of Honor, and came across as something
And say hi to Colt Cabana, who he eventually got into a lawsuit with and shitted on.
completely refreshing in an otherwise sanitized corporate world. It was huge. Rather than capitalizing on that and Punk's disappearance with the WWE title post Money in the Bank though, the promotion crowned an interim champion, then had Diesel launch into a mini feud with CM after that. Yes, fans there.
Another crazy thing you gotta think about with this is this right here. This was SummerSlam 2021, so this feud went into 2012. Guess what came out in 2012 that reshaped the pro wrestling world? The Bullet Club, which Kevin Nash thinks is a knockoff of the NWO, which it wasn't.
Live were always going to react to Big Nash, but his comeback didn't make sense unless
Like, people are flipping him, like, this guy in the, what looks like the old school gestures, he's flipping them off.
he literally was there to help out Hunter. Apparently, that was far too simple a concept for the weary creative team to fathom. So they went with Kevin and Trips at loggerheads. As Punk's hot summertime shoot became less and less of a concern, Backfired is putting it mildly. This stunk. Number 8, Scott.
Like I said, I think that there, they knew the perfect time of the Bullet Club and all the stuff they were doing, redefining New Japan and more or less the indie wrestling, was not a good time for WWE.
Steiner, 2002.
Excuse me.
The Steiner brothers hated WWF life so much between 1992 and 1994 that they couldn't wait.
Braun Breaker's dad's the one with the headgear on, by the way. And the chainmailing Steiner math had a mullet.
To leave, lay over in ECW as a quick excursion, then return home to WCW. Between then and 2000.
Yeah, do they look anything like there? Also, his TNA run was actually pretty good too.
2002, Scott Steiner had blossomed into a main event level talent who looked drastically different to the mullet rocking tag team wrestler he'd been during the new generation. Big
Steroids.
Papa Pump was walking muscle and had one of the most ridiculously pumped up physiques ever. The man looked like a superhero. It'd also been a highlight of latter-day WCW before the wheels fell off, and Vince McMahon bought the group's skeleton for a paltry sum. Once his AOL Time Warner contract expired...
Yeah, I want to say he was one of those guys who was like, I'm making X amount of money on my deal. Vince is like, well, if you want to come here, you got to take it less. They're like, well, my deal ends this day regardless. You can renegotiate then.
Scotty was ready to land in WWE and continue his good work. At Survivor Series 02, he interrupted a going nowhere Matt Hardy and Christopher Nowinski segment, and the live crowd in Madison Square Garden for the pay-per-view went nuts. Full cashew. WWE...
See, that's how you do it. It's you let somebody go out there as a, one-off, and then... like, oh, it's not gonna work? Now we send out the guy.
He would have been all smiles upon hearing that response. But then Steiner opened his mouth. Oh boy. High fives would have turned to sighs when Scott loudly shouted, "Give me a effing mic on air!" Oops. His debut was definitely eye-catching all around, but that little line was a sneak peek into the unruly mind of the genetic freak. He was so used to throwing his weight around that he didn't know how to do anything else. The returning star's resultant series of matches versus Triple H also floundered. Somehow,
Yeah, no, I don't think his style fit that era.
despite stinking up the joint at the 2003 Royal Rumble, Scott and Hunter arguably went on to work an even worse match at No Way Out. WWE didn't exactly get the best of Steiner from day one. In fact, they got the worst. If you're having fun hearing about these WWE returns,
Yeah, then he left with the TNA and kind of did a pretty good job there.
that backfired right away, then hit that subscribe button right down below and you'll get even more wonderful What Culture Wrestling videos absolutely every single day. Number 7, Shawn Michaels.
Wait, is this where he retired, came back, and
2018. Plot twist, sort of. Shawn's 2002 return was everything a blistering comeback should be. That immediately paid dividends at SummerSlam. I mean, it looked like Michaels had not lost a damn step. He'd then go on to enjoy approximately 8 years of stunning work that maybe even topped what he'd achieved pre-back injury in the 1990s. Lightning
Dick, he wasn't a dick.
didn't strike twice for HBK though. He signed on for a marquee tag bout with
Yeah, where he had his great retirement match with Taker, and then came back for one match in Saudi Arabia. So, why retire?
Triple H versus Kane and The Undertaker at Crown Jewel 2018, and fans were hyped by the thought of seeing Shawn wrestle for the first time since his 2010 retirement. He'd always been...
Not me. That was one of those things where it's like, dude, you had the greatest way to leave, and now you're coming back?
steadfast about never returning, so this felt like a huge, gigantic deal. Surely such a legend wouldn't agree to work again unless he was about to blow everyone's minds, right? Right? Sadly, it was obvious within minutes that Shawn was not the HBK of old. Fans knew he'd be...
Also, no one wanted to see a bald Shawn Michaels work either.
slower and have some ring rust, but they also had every right to expect a better match than what they actually got. The Crown Jewel tag was embarrassing
Yeah, this is a tag match 20 years past its due.
from start to finish. Trips tore a pec, Kane's wig fell off, all 4 botched multiple spots. It was just terrible. It was all terrible. Michaels and Taker later admitted their regret over this whole sorry affair. They were mortified, and rightly so. Even the biggest Shawn Michaels fan could have done without this.
Shawn looking right now going like, why did you drag me into this crap?
Sorry excuse for a send
Like, Triple H also looks to be the only one in, like, wrestling shape there.
off. DX versus the Brothers of Destruction unpicked some of the exhilarating work that HBK had done before retiring the first time. It was all just a blatant cash grab that left a really bad taste in your mouth. And hey, nobody's throwing stones at wrestlers for getting paid, but the match was
I'm throwing stones at these 4. They all made great money. It's not like someone who's like, all right, I'm not like Shawn's like a Warrior or one of those old school guys who isn't making real any money off their thing.
atrocious. It began poorly, then got even worse. What a nightmare. Number 6, Goldberg 2019.
This should just be Goldberg WWE. Like, the man I don't think had a good WWE run ever.
Right, I remember watching WrestleMania 33 live in my bedroom, and I will never forget just how electrifying Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg was on that show. It was awesome. They only worked for a few minutes, but both hurled one another around the ring with devastating power moves before getting to the finish. It was one of the better matches.
That's the Goldberg formula. It has to go quick or I'm not going to be exposed for not being that good. And I'm sorry, Goldberg, don't eat me.
On the whole card, so WWE cannot be blamed for wanting a little more when Bill was ready. Almost 2 years later, Goldberg was back for a fantasy clash with The Undertaker at Super Showdown 2019.
Yes, another 2 guys well past their expiration date. Let's put them together. They'll do fine.
WWE hyped all this like Taker's gong had hit on Nitro or Bill had speared him on Raw is War in the 90s. It felt massive. The first 2 minutes, or thereabouts, were actually pretty fun. Until Goldberg suffered a concussion, and the bout turned into a train wreck that could have realistically resulted in further serious injury or worse. Both Goldberg and Undertaker were visibly humiliated afterwards, especially the latter. He ironically started to question his own mortality, because some of his recent matches had been pretty darn crap. This, along with the aforementioned Crown Jewel 2018 disaster, was the nadir of dream matches on Saudi Arabian supercards. WWE...
Yeah, I think that there is also kind of what spawned AEW to an extent. Was WWE was starting to do these weird dream matches of wrestlers 20 years prior to probably 20 years after when everybody wanted to see them.
He had to face it. Some legends just couldn't go anymore. The bell had to ring and they had to deliver, but they couldn't. Goldberg going after Taker was one match too many for the ex-WCW squash match machine, and you probably know what happened next. Big Bill's next foray was even less enticing, and it blew up in WWE's faces instantly. Sorry in advance, my friend, but it's time to take a good long look at the misery of Super Showdown 2020. Number 5, Goldberg 2020.
Like I said, is there a good Goldberg run in WWE? Like, there's good Goldberg squash matches in WWE, but not good Goldberg runs.
Yep, it's Goldberg again. And it hurts bad for a guy who loved a man and even met him once to slap Bill twice. Facts are facts, though. Anybody who remembered the Nightmare Taker botch fest that nearly brained both legends could have told you that Goldberg returning on the 7th of February 2020 SmackDown and challenging Bray Wyatt's Fiend gimmick to a Universal title match in...
Again, he works with Brock because they're both big power guys who you don't expect to have a long match. Bray could have a long match.
Saudi Arabia was a terrible idea. But WWE plowed ahead with it anyway, because of course they did. They failed to learn any lessons from the prior year's card, and they wanted Goldberg to beat Wyatt for the belt like he was in there with James Ellsworth. As soon as the bell sounded and Bill raised that belt...
Yeah, I feel sorry for Bray Wyatt. He had two of the greatest gimmicks, and WWE did not know what to do with them.
above his head, the match became known for being one of the least wanted title changes in history. All in a night's work, eh? In truth, the backfiring started on TV earlier in the month. Fans could smell a horror show a-coming as soon as Goldberg told The Fiend he was next on SmackDown. Bray's wacky Undertaker meets Mankind character had been one of wrestling's most intoxicating guises since 2019. But everything...
Yeah, but he, unfortunately, just the bad booking. I cannot name a good Bray Wyatt feud. Like, singles feud, especially with The Fiend. Yeah, you did have the Wyatt family versus New Day, which was great. And, like, those matches there, but Daniel Bryan would be the only one I can really think of. But Bray never came out on top.
Everything was about to fall apart thanks to WWE's weird obsession with giving Saudi Arabia more lame Goldberg matches. COVID ensured they didn't even get to the payoff of Goldberg versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 36 either. Nope, instead of that, WWE was forced to cram Braun Strowman in as a last-minute challenge.
See, that one makes sense. I know it's not in this story, but Braun Strowman is a big, strong powerhouse. It would have worked.
Challenger. Feels like all that went down in a dream, and his Universal title reign was barely better than Bill's. This was an awful time for the old Universal strap, but it all started with sacrificing Wyatt's Fiend at the feet of the man. Number 4, Brian Christopher.
Grandmaster Sexy is the wrestler name. But is this the segment where he came out just to roast his own father, Jerry the King Lawler?
2011.
Time is running out.
Mute.
Revisit the 14th of March 2011
Yeah, he also wasn't in shape.
Raw today, and you will cringe the night away. On paper, a heel Michael Cole bringing back Jerry Lawler's son to browbeat him for being a rotten father worked. In execution, though, it was one of the most awkward segments in WWE history. It's also distressing for those who love them some Grandmaster Sexy.
Yeah, this kind of R-Truth level character, comedy wrestler, who was actually good in the ring, just come out to be kind of heel promo, just didn't feel
The
good.
former Too Cool favorite showed up on the flagship at the behest of Cole, but nobody in attendance seemed to have a clue who he was. Yep, it was just dancing to nothing. Brian Christopher's entrance played before deathly silence, and the crowd just sat on their hands during tense dialogue between Bry and Jerry. Honestly, the silence was deafening. You could almost hear vendors selling popcorn in the foyer. It became clear all too quickly that WWE's audience had changed quite a bit since Christopher was last tearing it up as...
Well, if he would have came back with Sky Duhati and Rikishi prior to this and was wrestling kind of in the mixture and then was like hey, what's your opinion on your dad, and then cut this promo, it probably would have worked, but just bring him out randomly? No.
Sexy. Without the Grandmaster get-up or Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty by his side, Bryan meant, well, nothing to the modern fan base. Crickets, people. Crickets. It was downright painful to watch somebody who had once been a part of a seriously hot tag title change on Raw in 2000 suffer this undignified humiliation. Back then, Christopher was one of the hottest acts in the entire company. By 2011...
Yeah, like, they could have easily somehow shifted him to a more serious wrestler, kind of what Orange Cassidy is. But they never did.
His star had faded to the point he might as well have been a fast food worker Lawler was rude to in the 1970s. That's the kind of gusto he was welcomed back with by fans. Poor guy. Number 3, Lord Tensai, 2020.
Oh, Albert. Yeah.
Albert.
Oh, yeah, this was bad. This one was just bad.
Matt Bloom was known amongst wrestling fans for 3 things by 2012. 1, playing walking penis gimmick Prince Albert during the Attitude Era.
Yep.
There's a sentence. 2,
Being very hairy.
having a hairy body. And 3, going off to Japan after leaving WWE in
Hey, look, it's Carl Anderson.
2004 and becoming a much, much, much better worker. He deserves...
Well, this could be the fact that New Japan is more of a strong style, realistic style wrestling versus WWE, so it could have fit just his style of wrestling.
Deserves credit for that last one, so it's no wonder the promotion wanted to bring him back years later for another whirl. Could they have picked a worse time to debut his new Lord Tensai gimmick than the night after WrestleMania, though? Tensai re-debuted in the E under...
It's like Lord Tensai is clearly a white guy. It's like, all right, cool, no.
his new name on the 2nd of April 2012 Raw. He beat Alex Riley in a quick squash that was designed to ready him for top star John Cena. But the rowdy post-main...
Yeah, everyone's like, welcome back, Albert.
The crowd were not interested in any of that. No, they were far too busy living it large and trolling Bloom with chants of Albert, Albert, Albert. Wacky roar after Mania crowd. The new character was doomed to fail after that. Things might not have been so bad had the guy been returning as his old age.
Yeah, if he came back as like some like King Albert, like I got promoted from Prince, would have been no issue, but brand new gimmick.
Train persona, or even under the Giant Bernard name he'd used out in New Japan. Hell, calling him Albert and cutting their losses would have been smarter than introducing an elaborate gimmick that was too over the top to be taken seriously by revelers in Florida for Mania 28. What were they thinking? Number 2.
Also, that was the era where not a lot of people really watched anything outside like New Japan, so like the internet really wasn't. What year was that?
Back with by fans. Poor guy. Number 3.
2012. So yeah, people had the internet, but they weren't like pirating everything as much as they.
Where do you find the soul of BMW? It's not just in a...
Through some catchphrase. Hulk Hogan's.
Yeah, so people weren't really watching as much as there before, so.
By revelers in Florida for Mania 28. What were they thinking? Number 2, Hulk Hogan 2025.
I am a conservative, I will say that much. In fact, it was... This house is not number 1, is the real question. So you have 1, he is a Trump supporter. That's the lowest thing on his totem pole of issues. So that's number 1 in California. That would have got him booed regardless. 2, he is a racist POS and has no issue admitting to it. Why would you think that's a good call? And 3, he's an arrogant asshole that no one currently likes. So it's like, it was the perfect storm of no.
Read the room. WWE failed to do that during Raw's debut episode on Netflix.
Then they failed to do it by moving solely to Netflix.
Hulk Hogan came out with Jimmy Hart to prattle on about his new beer, run through some catchphrases, and soak up acclaim from the audience. Apparently, some backstage thought that last one was a real possibility in...
Oh, God, you're...
2025. Those people haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, like I said, caught being a racist piece of shit, and then being like, I don't care, and all this other stuff that's happened, and that alone, then you added the whole Trump stuff, and it's just like perfect storm of like, no, he should be more blacklisted than like wrestlers that got Me Too.
Attention to anything surrounding Hulk for a long time, it seems. The live crowd booed Hogan out of the building, which is something WWE should have seen coming a mile off. Poor Jimmy Hart stood behind Hulk,
Yeah, we feel bad for the mouth of the South there.
waving his flag and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. This was worse than wrestling Mancow on pay-per-view multiple times for WCW. Way worse. It even tops having his precious hair snipped by Brutus the Barber Beefcake, for crying out loud. Brutus cost me my hair too. Okay, enough terrible jokes. The real joke was on WWE for thinking Hulkamania would be embraced here. This segment reeked of latter-day Vince McMahon delusion, but Vince was long gone. This happened under Triple H and TKO's watch.
I'm not even going to blame Triple H on this one. I think this was TKO being like, oh, we have the UFC. We see how Trump gets responded at UFC events. Is there crossover between UFC and WWE fans? Yes. Not to this extent, though.
Let's assume they won't.
Also, all the other shit that you have realistically, that like, you have a legit reason not to let the guy over, and then it's like,
be doing anything of the sort again anytime soon. Reportedly, Hulk's planned appearance on the next Saturday night's main event was scrapped because of this calamity of a
yeah, he needs to just go away and be happy he has a lot of money.
promo. Yep, good call. Hogan was a game changer for the WWF in the 1980s, and even revived his fortunes for further runs in the early 2000s. But times have changed.
Yeah, he got old. The internet existed. People can record at any and all times. And guess what happens when people can record at any and all times? If you're a racist piece of shit, they will catch you being a racist piece of shit. Simple as that.
And the people have spoken. They don't want to see Hulk on WWE TV anymore for various reasons. Let it go, WWE. Number 1, Shane McMahon, 2023. What is it?
Is this when Shane won Best Wrestler in the World?
With the McMahons and torn quads on pay-per-views they're not even advertised for. Vince shredded his legs when trying to sort out the messy finish between John Cena and Batista at Royal Rumble 2005. Years later, his son Shane collapsed to the mat in agony after shockingly returning for an impromptu match versus The Miz at WrestleMania 39 in 2023.
A good ups to Snoop Dogg for salvaging that.
Like his dad, Shane-O had suffered an embarrassing injury. He ripped his quad during the very first leapfrog spot and had to be replaced by Snoop Dogg.
I think Snoop Dogg was always supposed to get a spot in this thing, but not that early.
This is the kind of story an older lapsed fan who hasn't watched in years probably wouldn't believe. Let me get this straight. Shane McMahon returned for a match in 2023, got injured, and Snoop Dogg just happened to be on hand as a substitute versus The Miz? You're telling me The Miz is still around? That's the most shocking part. But yeah.
No, The Miz is one of those guys. He's there, he knows his gimmick, and he's perfectly happy being a mid-carder.
This happened in real life.
He's a serious R-Truth.
It wasn't a fever dream, I swear. Shane's familiar "Here Comes the Money" entrance music refrain will always get a pop. It's so memorable and catchy. But the pop fizzled by the time he was jousting with Miz and fans settled back into their seats. Those punters then watched as McMahon went for a leapfrog, his body gave out on him, and everyone had to call something else on the fly as Shane was helped to the back by medics. It was chaos. Entertaining chaos, but chaos. This was undoubtedly one of the most bizarre segments in Mania history, and that is saying something. Returning to action also backfired spectacularly on Shane. He went from feeling on top of the world to spending the night in hospital. Sorry, a local medical facility. There goes the money. If you had fun looking back at these
He has insurance.
WWE returns that backfired, then have a click on this 20.
Alright, so yeah. No, I don't think that should have been number 1. I think Shane should have been much, technically, I guess, lower on this list of returns. But yeah, not a bad video. I can't say I remember all of them, but if you like those wrestling content lists like that, dude, go check out What Culture Wrestling. That is their whole shtick. And they're great at it. It's one of the things they are really good at. But that's all I have. I guess I'll see weird people later. Oh, go check out. I'm probably streaming, doing a birthday stream on Twitch. But that's my plug. Later.